फैमिली में नहीं नहीं, एक तो मंथली एक शिवरात्रि होती है, हर महीने आती है। प्रदोष अलग है, शिवरात्रि अलग है, और महाशिवरात्रि एक ही बार आता है।
सर एक सेकंड प्लीज, सर प्लीज। We are live on. We are live now, sir. Sir, we are, sir, we are, sir.
Yes, sir.
We are live on YouTube, sir. Namo Ramana, Michael.
Recording करो तो परमिशन मांगो।
Narayanji, we will start now in 30 seconds. Namo Ramana. A warm welcome to Satsang at Raman Kendra with Michael James. Narayanji, I would request you to start with the puja, please.
Start. Okay. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Nandaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturabhujam Prasannavathanam Dhyaye Sarvabhignopasantaye. Ayam Mutta Samutta Dodu Mandonam Pranando. Ayam Mutta Samutta Dostu Tadeva Laganam Sadinam Tadeva Sharamalam Chandramam Tadeva Vidyamanam Devaparam Tadeva Lakshmi Padete Devi Smarami. Om Bhuva Om Swa Om Maha Om Dhanam Tava Om Satyam Om Tatsadarvavanyam Bhargo Devasya Demihi Yo Yona Prajoya Om Avajyotrasa Amrudam Guruvaswaram Namo Partha Samasta Buddha Shatvara Sri Parameswar Vichittam Karishamanasya Karmana Adho Vignes Pulam Kasye Prithviya Merutulsi Sutalam Chandaburmo Devada Prithviya Trida Loga Devatam Vishnuna Trida Vamsatarimam Devi Goptiram Gurudasanam Agamatam Tu Devaram Karnatam Tu Lakshasam Andaram Karamyado Devadavanya Rajanam Namo Partha Samasta Buddha Shaitara Sri Parmeswar Vichittam Nirmita Satyattamado Vignesar Pujam Karishye Dhananampa Bharavati Kumavami hai Kavim Kavidam Sutram Jeshtanam Brahmanam Brahmanasya Ansuram Asmin Daitram Me Mahaganapatim Jayami Mahaganapatim Avamayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Achamam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Adyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Padyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Asavanyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Bhogosarivasnanam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Snanandaram Asavanyam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Vastradatam Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Yajnopavidartam Akshadam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Gandham Dharayami Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Gandhovari Akshatam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Anandaranatham Akshatam Samarpayami Om Mahaganapatim Namah Aritra Kumkumam Samarpayami ओम महागणपतिये नमः। पुष्पै पूजयामि। ओम सुमुगाय नमः। ओम एकदंगाय नमः। ओम कपिलाय नमः। ओम गजगन्नगाय नमः। ओम लंबोदराय नमः। ओम विकटाय नमः। ओम विघ्नराजाय नमः। ओम विनायकाय नमः। ओम धूमकेतवे नमः। ओम गणाध्यक्षाय नमः। ओम बालचंद्राय नमः। ओम गजाननाय नमः। ओम वक्रतुंडाय नमः। ओम शूर्पकर्णाय नमः। ओम हेरंबाय नमः। ओम स्कंदमूर्धवाय नमः। ओम सिद्धविनायकरे नमः। ओम शंकरमोक्षविनायकरे नमः। ओम अतुपुरपने विनायकरे नमः। ओम महागणपतिये नमः। नानाविध परिमलपत्र पुष्पाणि समर्पयामि। धूपार्थं समर्पयामि। धूपार्थं समर्पयामि। अक्षतां समर्पयामि। ओम भूर्भुवस्सुवः स्वस्तिर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। देवसवितुर्वरेण्यं तदेव प्रसन्नामि अमृतस्वं स्वाहा। ओम प्राणाय स्वाहा। ओम अपानाय स्वाहा। ज्ञानाय स्वाहा। उदानाय स्वाहा। समानाय स्वाहा। ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। प्रगन्धकर्कण्डनिवेद्यं समर्पयामि। मध्ये मध्ये पानीयं समर्पयामि। अमृतोक्तां सूत्रावसं समर्पयामि। कर्पूरं समर्पयामि। गणानां गणपतिं एकराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पदां महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। कर्पूरं समर्पयामि। नीराजनं समर्पयामि। नीराजनानन्तरम् आसमनीयं समर्पयामि। हरि ओम हरि ओम हरि ओम। ओम प्राणाय स्वाहा। वाणाय स्वाहा। व्यानाय स्वाहा। उदानाय स्वाहा। ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। महागणपतिये नमः। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा गणपति प्रसादं शिरसा प्रणमामि। ओम भो ओम भुव ओम स्व ओम महः ओम जन ओम तव ओम सत्यम ओम तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ओम ज्योतिषं समोपात समस्त दुर्दशा द्वारा परमेश्वर विद्यतम सुबह सोमे मूर्ते आद्य ब्रह्मण नित्य प्रांते श्रीवेदे वराह कल्पे वैवस्वत मन्वंतरे अष्टाविंशतितमे कलियुगे प्रथमे भागे जम्बूद्वीपे भारतवर्षे वर्णघट्टे नीरो दक्षिणे पार्श्वे सदाब्दे अस्मिन् व्यावादिके प्रभवादिना षष्ट्या संवत्सराणां मध्ये तिलवरान संवत्सरे उत्तरायणे वसंत ऋतु ऋषभ मासे शुक्लपक्षे चतुर्थ्या शुभतिथौ भानुवास युक्तायां पुनर्वस नक्षत्र युक्तायां तृतीय शुभतिथौ भानुवास युक्तायां पुनर्वस नक्षत्र युक्तायां शुभ नक्षत्र शुभ योग शुभ कर्म एवं गुण विशेषण विशिष्टायां अस्यां चतुर्थ्यां शुभतिथौ मम जन्म पापस जन्मप्रति एनच्चनमर्यन्नं मध्ये सम्भावदानं सर्वेषां भावानां सत्य अभिमानार्थम् अस्माहं सहस्रमानं क्षेमसौकर्य वीर्य विजय आयुरारोग्य ऐश्वर्याणाम् अभिवृद्ध्यर्थं समस्त मंगलावृद्ध्यर्थं समस्त दुर्योग शान्त्यार्थं नमनवर्षीय प्रसादेन ज्ञानवैराग्य सिद्ध्यर्थं नमनवर्षीय पूजां करिष्ये तदङ्गं कलश पूजां च करिष्ये विघ्नेश्वरं यथास्थानं प्रतिष्ठापयामि सोमनाथे क्षेमाय ज्ञानागमनाय च कलशस्य मुखे विष्णुकण्ठे रुद्रसमाधित मूले तत्रसिद्धितो ब्रह्मा मातृमा समृद्धा कुशोत्तु सागरा सत्ये सप्तत्विधा सुंदरा ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेदो सामवेदो उपधर्मण गंगे सैवसैवं गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिंधु कावेरी जलेन्द्रं गंगं गुरु अम्बै सहित सर्वे कर्तानुसमाकृता आयातु देवपूजार्थं दुर्दशकारभा कंबूरा सागरोत्पन्नो विष्णुआकारे विष्णुदकरे देवे समुद्रे गर्भे पांचन्य नमोस्तुते देवो देवादि उक्त देव देवस्नान अध्यान निर्मालयं स्वयंभवने पूजयेत् ओम सकल गुणात्मशक्तियुक्ताय योगपीडात्मने नमः आधार शक्तिये नमः मूल प्रकृतिये नमः आदिवराय नमः आदिकूर्माय नमः अनंताय नमः पृथ्वीये नमः आदित्यादि नवग्रह देवोभ्यो नमः रसदिग्बालेभ्यो नमः गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः ओम अस्य श्री प्राण प्रतिष्ठा मंगलस्य ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश्वरा विशेषज्ञ सामधर्वाणी संतांसि सकल जगत स्थिति संहार धारणी प्राण शक्ति परादेवता आम बीजम हरिम शक्ति ओम कीलकम प्राण प्रतिष्ठा में विनियोग आम अंगुष्ठाभ्यां नमः हरितंजलिभ्यां नमः ओम मध्यमाभ्यां नमः आम अनाभ्यां नमः हरितनिष्ठाभ्यां नमः ओम कन्नडपुष्पाभ्यां नमः आम हृदयाय नमः हरिं शिरसे स्वाहा ओम सिद्धाय वसत् आम कौसायं हरिं यजुदाय वसत् ओम अस्त्रधार पूर्वस्वरद दिग्बंध ध्यानं रक्तांबुधिस्त बोधोदस कर्णसोण कराचे पासं गोदंड मिक्षुत्व मणिनमनं पंचमाणा विद्वान सुकबालं किरेल सुधा पिनव सोरोटिया देवी बाला गौरना बहुदूरी प्राण शक्ति बराना ओम आम हरि क्रोम क्रोम हरि माम अम्यम रमलम वंशम चन्म अंतस्वः ओम वंश अस्यामूर्तौ जीवदृष्टदो अस्यामूर्तौ सर्वेन्द्रियाणि वाङ्मनस्व सस्वस्वत्र दिव्या प्राणवाक् पाणिवाद वायुस्थानि याकस्ये स्वस्ति सुखं सुखं दृष्टन्तु स्वाहा ओम अस्य श्री प्राणप्रतिष्ठामकस्य ब्रह्मा विष्णु महेश्वरा विशेषज्ञ सामधर्वाणी संतांसि सकल जगत स्थिति संहारकारणि प्राण शक्ति परादेवता आम बीजम हरिं शक्ति ओम कीलकम प्राण प्रतिष्ठा में विनियोग आम अंगुष्ठाभ्यां नमः हरिदर्जनीभ्यां नमः ओम मध्यमाभ्यां नमः आम अनाभ्यां नमः हरिदंष्टाभ्यां नमः ओम कर्णपुष्टाभ्यां नमः आम हृदयाय नमः हरिं शिरसे स्वाहा ओम सिद्धाय वसत् आम कौसायं हरिं नेत्रदाय वसत् ओम अस्त्रधापट पूर्वस्वरद दिग्बंध असुरीदे पुनरस्मात् सक्सप्न प्राणने यूर्दे भोगम जो पश्यमे सूर्यं चक्रमर्मदे मणियानुस्मृति आवायुदो भव सत्ताविदो भव सन्निधो भव सन्निधो भव अबगुणिदो भव सुब्रतो भव सुप्रसन्नो भव सुभो भव वरदो भव प्रसिद्ध स्वामी सर्वजगन्नाथ यावत् पूजावसानकं तावत् त्वं प्रतिपादेन इंदेस्मिन् सन्निधं कुरु ओम नमो भगवते श्री कुशेलाय नमः नमो भगवते कुबेराय नमः चतुर्लोकी मंत्रनेन पौरसे पुत्रः लक्ष्मी प्रदसी महानगद प्रिय ईश्वरा now I will recite Bhagwan's Ashtotra. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Abhara Sakti Sugavari Rasore Sorvimatram Onam Namastam Ayudantam Brahmam Gaviram Sintavirinam Hridi Sindayami Om Mahatena Mahosena Jataya Namaha Om Shri Ramanaya Namaha Om Gurave Namaha Om Agandasam Vidagaraya Namaha ओम औजसे नमः। ओम कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ओम जगद्धावताराय नमः। ओम श्री भूमिनादास्तलोतिदाय नमः। ओम पराशर कुलोतंसाय नमः। ओम सुंदरा तदवत्पलाय नमः। ओम कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः। ओम सयायंबा सयायवते नमः। ओम सोनातुल मोहनीन मानसाय नमः। ओम स्वर्णस्तगाय नमः। ओम श्रीमद्वादशांग महास्थले लप्त विद्योदयाय नमः। ओम महाशक्ति निवादेन प्रवृत्ताय नमः। ओम परमार्थविदे नमः। ओम दिग्विदाय नमः। ओम पितृविदान्वेषणे नमः। ओम इंदुमौलिना पितृमुदे नमः। ओम पितरादेष्ट सोणसैनं प्राप्ताय नमः। ओम तपोमयाय नमः। ओम उदासीनाय नमः। ओम महायोगिने नमः। ओम महोत्सहाय नमः। ओम कुशाग्रव्ये नमः। ओम शांत संकल्प संप्रभाय नमः। ओम सुसुदृशे नमः। ओम सवित्रे नमः। ओम स्थिराय नमः। ओम तपस्वेद सर्वंगाय नमः। ओम पुल्लामूद विलोचनाय नमः। ओम चंद्रिका सदास श्री मंडिताय मंडलाय नमः। ओम सूदवाक्यां समासीनाय नमः। ओम सूर्यदाक्षिण विक्रमाय नमः। ओम वेद वेदांत तत्वज्ञाय नमः। ओम चिन्मुद्रणे नमः। ओम त्रिगुणादिगाय नमः। ओम विरूपाक्ष भुवावासाय नमः। ओम विराजित सलाकृतिये नमः। ओम उत्थित नयनाय नमः। ओम पूर्णाय नमः। ओम रसिदासन तांडवाय नमः। ओम गंभीराय नमः। ओम परमाचार्याय नमः। ओम सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ओम अभयप्रदाय नमः। ओम दक्षिणासीवाय नमः। ओम धीराय नमः। ओम दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ओम स्वराजे नमः। ओम महर्षिये नमः। ओम भगवते नमः। ओम ईड्याय नमः। ओम भूम विद्या विशारदाय नमः। ओम विमलाय नमः। ओम दीर्घदर्शने नमः। ओम आप्ताय नमः। ओम भुजमार्ग प्रदर्शकाय नमः। ओम समत्रुषे नमः। ओम सत्यत्रुषे नमः। ओम सत्याय नमः। ओम प्रसादाय नमः। ओम अमित विक्रमाय नमः। ओम सुकुमाराय नमः। ओम सदानंदाय नमः। ओम मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ओम दयार्णवाय नमः। ओम श्री सोनासुर युद्भूत स्कंदासम निकेतनाय नमः। ओम सद्दर्शनोपदेष्टरे नमः। ओम सद्भक्त वृंद परिपूताय नमः। ओम गणेश मुनिप्रिंगेन सेवितान विसरोरुवाय नमः। ओम गीतोपदेश सारादि ब्रह्म संसिंह संस्याय नमः। ओम वर्णाश्रम मदादीदाय नमः। ओम रसज्ञाय नमः। ओम सौम्याय नमः। ओम आत्मवदे नमः। ओम सर्वावनिमुखस्थानां माराख्याय नमः। ओम सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ओम आत्मारामाय नमः। ओम महाभागाय नमः। ओम मातृमुक्ति विदायकाय नमः। ओम विनदाय नमः। ओम विरुदाय नमः। ओम विप्राय नमः। ओम मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ओम भावगोज्वलाय नमः। ओम दर्शनादक सम्मार्गे नमः। ओम मौलेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ओम विचांदिकर्ताय नमः। ओम प्रणात्मक मोचकाय नमः। ओम अंतकीर चंडांसले नमः। ओम संसारारंभ तारणाय नमः। ओम सोनादुरी विष्टरे नमः। ओम आर्त विद्या प्रकाशकाय नमः। ओम अविच्युत निज प्रज्ञाय नमः। ओम नैसर्गिक महाकलसे नमः। ओम कमंडलुराय नमः। ओम सुब्रगविन वसनाय नमः। ओम भुवाय नमः। ओम दंडवाणीय नमः। ओम कृपा पूर्णाय नमः। ओम पवरोग पिशक्वराय नमः। ओम स्कंदाय नमः। ओम देवदमाय नमः। ओम अमर्त्याय नमः। ओम सेनानिये नमः। ओम पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री मुरुगाय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री वल्ली दैवाने नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री सुब्रमण्याय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री स्वामीनाथने नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री दक्षिणामूर्तिये नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री नटराजरे नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री भैरवरे नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री नंदीमहेश्वराय नमः। ओम नमो भगवते श्री शिव पार्वतीये नमः। हरि ओम 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 हरि ओम। Let us all recite Upadeshara. We'll all recite Upadeshara. कर्तुरा गया प्रापदे फलम कर्म विमरम कर्म गज्जडम गृहति महगधो वदन कारणम फलम शाश्वतम गगनिरोधकम ईश्वरार्पितम नेचया कृतम सिद्धसोदकम मुक्तिसाधकम कायवाङ्मन कार्यमुद्यमं भूजनं जव चिन्तनं क्रमा जगतैषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृ देवपूजनम् उद्गमस्तवा उच्चमन्दद सिद्धजं जव ध्यानमुत्तमम् आद्यधारया श्रोणसा समं सरलचिन्तनं विरलभरं वेदभावना सौवमित्यसौ भावनाभिधा भावनीमना भावशून्यस भावसुस्तुति भावनाबला भक्तिरुद्गमा तिरुस्तले मन स्वस्थता प्रिया भक्ति योग बोधाचरिष्ठितम् वायुरोदना लीयते मन जालभक्षिव योगसाधनम् सिद्धवायव सिद्ध्रियायुधा सागयोर्वैः शक्तिमूलगा लयविनाशने उभयरोधने लयकदम्बुन भवदिनो मृदम् प्राणवन्दना लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तना नासमेत्यद नष्टमानसो पृष्ठयोगिन प्रीत्यमस्ति स्वस्तिगं यद दृश्यवारिदं सिद्धमात्मन सित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गणे हृदे नैव मानसं मार्गार्जवा वृद्धयस्महं वृद्धिमाश्रिता वृद्धयो नरो विद्यहं मन अहमयं बुधो भवति चिरपद ऐपद निज विसारणम् अहमिनाशभाक् यमहं दया स्फुरदीर स्वयं परमपूर्णस इदमहं वदा अभिक्यमन्वम् अहमलीनके अभ्यल्लसत्तया विक्रयेन्द्रिय प्राणदीगम नाम से कस दज्जडं सस सत्ववासिका चित्तवेदना सद्दयायिचि सिद्धयायम् ईसजीवयो वेशदीभिता सत्स्वभावदो वस्तु केवलम् वेशानद स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्भया आत्मनिष्ठदा ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीनचि ज्ञानमस्ति ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपमि आत्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा पूर्णसिद्धं बन्धं यदि दम्बरं सुखं विन्ददीयै वस्तुदैविक अहमवेदकं निजविभागं महतितं तवो रमणवाक्यम् महतितं तवो रमणवाक्यम् महतितं तवो रमणवाक्यम् अरुणाचल अरुणाचल अरुणाचल
Namo Ramana. We have with us Mr. Michael James, with whom we had the last Q&A last month. A brief introduction, which he does not need at all, but still we have a few members joining on YouTube for the first time and on Zoom. Mr. Michael James started his spiritual journey at Thiruvannamalai during his visit to India in 1976. He stayed there for over 20 years and had a long friendship and association with Sri Sadhu Om, and assisted him in translating Guru Vachaka Kovai, Nanyar, and other works of Bhagwan. He is now based in London, where he regularly discusses Bhagwan's teachings with fellow devotees via email and Zoom, focusing primarily on explaining his original Tamil writings, and writes articles for his blog. Mr. Michael James, sir, may I please request you to address the devotees once again.
Namaskaram. Like last time, I'll be answering questions. There are a number of questions I wasn't able to answer last time, so I'll answer those questions first. And if anyone would like to ask any questions, in the meanwhile, you can do so. The first question today is a question by Sonia. What she has asked is, while crying due to an insurmountable longing for God, I wonder, who is it that's crying? Is it the ego? Yes, it is ego. That is, why do we have an unsurmountable longing for God? Only because we feel ourselves to be separate from God. And we feel ourselves to be separate from God only because we have risen as ego. What is God? God is actually nothing but our own real nature, which is infinite being, Sat, infinite awareness, Chit, and infinite happiness, Ananda. That is our real nature. That is what we actually are. But now as ego, we experience ourselves as if we were a person. I am Sonia, or I am Michael, or whoever. This person is a form composed of 5 sheaths: a body, a mind, body, life, mind, intellect, and will. So these are all finite things. So as ego, we always experience ourselves as a finite entity. We are limited in time, in space, and we are separate from all other things. So that's the limitation is in Kala, Desa, and Vastu, as they say. Kala means we're limited in time. We were born at such and such a time. We're going to die at such and such a time. So this person we now seem to be occupies a very small period in time, duration in time. We are also limited in space. We are here, not there. We occupy a tiny space within this vast universe. This is how it appears to us, so long as we experience ourselves as this person. And we are also limited in Vastu. I am this, not that. I am this person, I'm not that person, or this object. So we are limited in all these ways. As this limited entity, we cannot experience the unlimited happiness, which is our own real nature, or the unlimited love, which is our own real nature, or the unlimited being or awareness, which is our own real nature. So we, as ego, our very nature is to be dissatisfied. Why are we dissatisfied? Because our real nature is infinite satisfaction, infinite happiness. Anything less than infinite happiness cannot satisfy us. So we seek satisfaction. We think if I have more money, or if I have a nicer job, or if I have nicer friends or relatives or whatever, we think our happiness and misery depends on other things because we've limited ourselves. So ultimately we come to understand, but however much we accumulate the objects of our desire, the wealth, the name, the fame, sense pleasures, and so on, we are still dissatisfied. So we begin to look for happiness beyond these things. That is, all these material things cannot satisfy us. Anything that is finite cannot satisfy us. So we seek happiness in that which is infinite. That is what we call God. But God, though we call it God and take it to be something other than ourselves, it's actually our own real nature. So because of this, perpetual dissatisfaction, that is the very nature of ego, we are always longing for the infinite happiness that we actually are. And we first try to find that in objects, and we can't find it in objects. So we try to find it in that which is infinite. And our idea of what is infinite is what we call God. But actually, that is our own real nature. In order to know God, in order to truly love God, we need to know ourselves. Because so long as we take God to be other than ourselves, our love is divided between ourselves and God. Because as Bhagavan says in the first paragraph of Nana, everyone has the greatest love only for himself. That is, he says there, Yavakum taniditilaye parama priyam irapadalam, since everyone has the greatest love for themselves. So we cannot but love ourselves. So long as we take God to be something other than ourselves, our love is divided between ourselves and God. So our love becomes full, our love for God becomes perfect only when we experience God as ourselves. And in order to experience God as ourselves, we need to know what we actually are. And in order to know what we actually are, we need to investigate ourselves. And investigating ourselves entails surrendering ourselves, because the more we attend to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, that is the ego subsides. The subsidence of ego is what is otherwise called self-surrender. So this is the beautiful path of self-investigation and self-surrender that Bhagavan has taught us, which is the only way to surmount this insurmountable longing for God. That is, so long as we take God to be other than ourselves, our longing for him is insurmountable. We will always be longing for him. Only when we experience God as ourselves will we surmount that insurmountable longing, and that love for God, which was previously a vritti, a movement away from ourselves for something else, will be experienced as sahaja, as our own real nature, as what we actually are. That is the surmounting of the insurmountable longing for God. So, Sonia, I hope that adequately answers that question. So yes, the question was actually, is it ego? Yes, it's certainly ego. It's only ourself as ego. That is, when we rise as a separate entity, God seems to be separate from ourselves, so we have a longing for him. Everything that is experienced other than ourself is experienced only by ourself as ego. In sleep, when we don't rise as ego, we don't experience anything other than ourselves. Only when we rise as ego in waking or dream do we experience other things. This is why Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uludunaptu, Ahande undayin anatumundahum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahande indrail indru anatum. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ahande Yavamam, ego itself is everything. Why? Because everything that we see, just like in a dream, everything that we see in a dream is nothing but our own mind. Everything that we see in this waking, according to Bhagavan, this present state is just another dream. What we take to be waking is just a dream. So everything we experience here is nothing but our own mind. It's our own thoughts. And all those thoughts arise from where? From ego. So ego is the source and substance of all that we see. So in order to know what we actually are, we need to investigate this ego. Ego will thereby subside back into its source, and we will then merge back into the source from which we rose. That source is what is called God. So this is how we overcome the longing for God, by overcoming our seeming separation from God. We are never actually separate from God, but so long as we seem to be this person, so long as we rise as ego and take ourselves to be this person or any other person, we seem to be separate from God. So Sonia, that was your first question. You also had another question, which I'll also answer now. What you had asked was, I tried to read Vishnu Sahasranama and Ramcharitamanas with awareness, but a few minutes into it, my thoughts are somewhere else, and I'm able to recite only because I remember the lines. While reciting, my awareness should be on what? Meaning what I am, meaning on what I'm reciting, or the words, or myself. That is, awareness is always present. We are always aware because awareness is our real nature. The problem is we are aware of things other than ourselves. That is, our real nature is pure awareness. Pure awareness is awareness that is not aware of anything other than itself, because pure awareness alone exists. It's the infinite whole, so there cannot be anything other than it. So pure awareness, why it's called pure awareness? Because it has no content, it has no objects of awareness. That is our real state. When we rise as ego, we are still aware, but instead of being aware only of ourselves, we seem to be aware of other things. And those other things distract us. For example, as you say, you try to read Vishnu Sahasranama or Ramcharitamanas, and you want to have your mind on what you're reciting, but your mind wanders out, your attention wanders elsewhere, because so many other thoughts are preoccupying your mind. You have so many other cares and concerns. You've got a life in this world. You may have a job. You may have a family. You have bills to pay, problems to solve. There's so many things that draw our attention away from what we want to attend to. So you say you want to, and if we know something by heart, we can go on reciting it mechanically, even though our mind is wandering here and there. There's very little use in such mechanical recitation. We can't say it's entirely useless, but it's of very limited use. So what should we be attending to when we are reciting any such devotional work? Normally, when we are reciting a devotional work, we want to attend to not just the words, but to the meaning of the words. I mean, it's good to attend to the words, but it's because the words of sacred texts have their own power. But more important, more efficacious than attending to the words is attending to the meaning. All sacred texts, they have meaning. And so if our mind is dwelling on the meaning, it is good. But better than dwelling either on the words or the meaning, attending to ourself is best of all. That is, all these sacred texts are about what? They're all about God. God, as I was saying, God seems to be separate from ourselves because we have risen as ego, but God is actually nothing other than ourselves. So the ultimate import of any sacred text, whether Vishnu Sahasranama or Ramcharitamanas, is God. And God is nothing but ourself, Tattvamasi. So attending to ourself is the best of all. That's why in verse 8 of Upadesha Undya or Upadesha Saram. In Upadesha Undya, Bhagavan says, rather than Anya Baba, Ananya Baba, in which he is I, is best among all. Anya Baba means, in this context, Baba means meditation. So Anya Baba means meditation on something other than ourselves. That implies in the context, meditating on God as if he was something other than ourselves. So rather than meditating on God as something other than ourselves, meditating on him as Ananya, as not other than ourselves, which Bhagavan qualifies as aham aham aham, in which he is I. So when we are meditating on God as nothing other than ourselves, we are doing so with the understanding that he is nothing other than I. And Bhagavan says, anatinam uttamam, that is the best of all. Why is it the best of all? In the context, this verse 8 is the last in a series of verses in which Bhagavan is talking about means of purification of the mind. So it's best in the sense that it's the most effective means to purify the mind. It's also the highest form of bhakti, because rather, as I said earlier, rather than taking God to be something other than ourselves, so long as we take God to be other than ourselves, our love is divided between ourselves and him. But when we understand that God is nothing other than ourselves, and when we love him as ourselves, then our love is undivided. That is then we are coming closer to the infinite love that is the real nature of God and the real nature of ourselves. So the best of all spiritual practices is this Ananya Bhava. What he refers to here is Ananya Bhava, meditating on what is not other. What is not other? Only what is not other than ourselves is only ourselves. So meditating on what is not other than ourselves means meditating on ourselves. And meditating on ourselves is what is otherwise called Swarupa Dhyana or Atma Vichara. So among all the spiritual practices, this practice of Atma Vichara is best among all. Because when we are attending to ourselves, we are attending to the real nature of God. So if you can, while reciting any sacred work, if you can do so with your attention on yourself, that is best of all. Second best is attending to a meaning. But the meaning is all referring, that is, Vishnu Sahasranama is about whom? It's about Vishnu, God. Ram Charitamanas is about whom? It's about Rama, who is God. So they're all about, so the meaning is pointing towards these words have meaning. The meaning is pointing towards Vishnu or Rama, and Vishnu or Rama is that which is shining in our heart as I. So best to attend to ourselves. Second best to attend to be thinking of Vishnu or Rama. Third best is to be attending to the meaning which is pointing towards Vishnu or Rama. And fourth best is to be attending to the words whose meaning is pointing towards Vishnu or Rama. So I hope that adequately answers that question, Sonia. The next question was asked by Seema. What Seema asked, actually she asked two questions. The first question is, it's not possible to remain absolutely quiet all the time since one talks with people about various issues, watches serials, social media, and news. Nevertheless, Swadhyay, Dhyan, and Japa are also done simultaneously. Should we completely shut out worldly talk, or can we divide our time or do both? The less our mind dwells on worldly things, the better. Because that is, Bhagavan says in the 19th paragraph of Nana, he says, it is not appropriate to let one's mind dwell excessively on worldly matters. So our aim should be to minimize the extent to which we think about worldly matters. But it may be our destiny to be, I mean, we all, so long as we take ourselves to be a person, we have a life in this world. We have relationships with people, whether family relationships or whether work relationships or just friendships or whatever. We interact with people in so many ways. And the extent to which we interact with people is determined by our prarabdha. Whatever is to happen in our life, it's going to go on according to prarabdha. So we may not be able to entirely involve being in situations where we are talking with people about worldly issues. We shouldn't seek such, that is, if we have great enthusiasm to gossip or to talk about the news or anything, that is a result of our Vishaya vasanas, our inclination to attend to Vishayas, the things other than ourselves. So two things are happening, two forces are driving our actions. Certain actions we do because it's necessary to do them in order to experience our prarabdha. That's what Bhagavan says in the first sentence of his note to his mother. According to the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that, being there, that means being in each place, or implying in the heart of each one, will make them act. That is, because we have a prarabdha is the fruit of actions that we've done in the past, but have been selected by God. So prarabdha is karma pala, certain things we are to experience. The actions we do are not prarabdha, but in accordance with our prarabdha, God will make us do certain actions, because in order to experience our prarabdha, certain actions are necessary. But at the same time that our actions are being driven by God in accordance with our prarabdha, our own will, our own vasanas are driving our actions. That is, if we're much interested in gossiping, or if we're much interested in the news, or if we're much interested in politics, our interest in those things will impel us to do these things. So the actions that we are impelled to do in accordance with prarabdha do not bind us, because those, whether we are interested in those actions or not, we will be made, our body, speech, and mind will be made to do those actions. We need not attend to those actions, because God will make us do those actions. The problem is we have so much interest in all these vivahara, in all these vishayas. So our mind is with great enthusiasm going out to all these things. So it's at a subtle level that we cannot avoid those actions that we are destined to do, that we must do in accordance with our destiny. So it may be your destiny to meet people, and those people may talk about worldly things. We shouldn't let our attention go on these things. We should be trying to withdraw our attention within. And if you're reciting some doing some japa or any such thing while people are talking, you can be in your mind, let people can be talking their worldly things. Your mind can be dwelling on whatever japa you're doing, on a mantra or ideal, on a name of God, or some sloka that is pointing us in the right direction. But better than attending to any such practice, best of all, as I was just saying earlier, best of all is to keep our attention dwelling on ourselves, because whatever actions our mind, speech, and body may be engaged in, who is aware of these actions? I am. So that awareness, I am, is there as the constant background to whatever we may be experiencing. So in the midst of any experience, that is, according to prarabdha, we have to experience things, but whatever we may be experiencing, to whom are all those experiences occurring? To me. So we can be turning our attention back to ourselves, holding on to that I am, which is the adhisthana, the adhara, the basis on which all these appear. As Bhagavan often said, that our fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am, that is Satchit, that is like the screen on which all these pictures appear. So both the seer and the seen are pictures appearing on the screen of that pure fundamental awareness I am. So if, as far as possible, we should be holding on to that that self-attentiveness, that attention to that fundamental awareness I am. When our attention slips away from ourselves, so long as our attention is away from ourselves, it's better to keep it dwelling on things like on Swadhyaya or Dhyana or Japa. Such things are much better than allowing it to dwell on worldly things. So even when we allow our attention to go away from ourselves, we should still be keeping it in check. We shouldn't allow our attention to be swayed here and there by our Vishaya vasanas. And the nature of Vishaya vasanas is to take our attention more and more away from ourselves. Practices such as Swadhyaya, Dhyana, and Japa are slowly, in a roundabout way, bringing our attention back closer to ourselves. But the best of all is attending to ourselves. This is what Bhagavan has, the ultimate path that Bhagavan has taught us. This is the path we all have to follow sooner or later. So the sooner we begin following this path of self-investigation, the better, because this is the direct path home. All the other practices, Dhyana and Japa and so on, they're all good, but they are more roundabout ways. They are not the direct way. But what is our destination? Our destination is to return to the source from which we have risen. That source from which we have risen is our own real nature. So only by turning our attention back to ourselves are we following the direct path back to ourselves. And then the second question you asked, Seema, is in Be As You Are, Bhagavan says that after leaving the body, the soul is born immediately and keeps going back and forth. If this is the case, what happens to a concept of Swarg, Narak, that's heaven, hell, and various lokas, world, rituals of 13 days, etc. Please explain. I actually searched Be As You Are for this. I didn't find where Bhagavan says that the soul is born immediately. That is, but I will explain what is, that is, Bhagavan gave different answers in different contexts to suit different people. But generally, the basic teaching of Bhagavan is that whatever state we experience is just a dream. That any state in which we experience phenomena, whether it's heaven or hell or this world or any other world, it's all just a dream. The dreamer of all dreams is ego. As soon as ego begins dreaming, as soon as we rise as ego, we begin dreaming, we first, that is, whenever we are dreaming, we experience ourselves as a body in the dream world. That is, we never experience a dream in which we don't experience ourselves as a body in that dream world. That is, we see the world from the perspective of a particular person, a particular body within that dream. So when the body of our present dream dies, in other words, when this dream comes to an end, one of two possibilities are there. Either we immediately start dreaming another dream, or we subside into a state like sleep. So, because so long as we are rising as ego, that any state in which we've risen as ego is a dream, and any state in which we subside back into self is a state of manolaya, a temporary dissolution of mind or ego. So when this body dies, the ego may subside back into sleep, and then after some time begin to dream, or it may go from this dream immediately into another dream. That is, we experience this every day. When a dream comes to an end, sometimes we merge back into sleep, sometimes we come to this waking state. So both possibilities are there, but whichever happens doesn't really make much difference, because even if we subside into sleep, sooner or later we're going to rise again and continue dreaming. So all these, if Bhagavan said that after leaving the body, the soul is born, what that means is But when one dream comes to an end, another dream continues. The soul that is born is nothing but ego, and the being born is nothing but dreaming. That is it. The commencing of a dream is birth. The ending of a dream is death. So all these, if Bhagavan said that, he didn't necessarily say, but you will be born again as a human in this loka. You could be born as an animal in this loka. You could be born as a deva in Swarga. You could be born as a sura in Naraka. You could be born anywhere. But wherever you are born, it's all just a dream. It's all your own mental creation. So Swarga and Naraka, heaven and hell, are and all the other various worlds that are described in the Puranas and other texts, they are all as real as this world. And this world is as real as any world that we experience in a dream, because whatever we experience, it is all only a dream. So if we do good karmas, we will experience a very pleasant dream. That pleasant dream is what is called Swarga. If we are doing only bad karmas, we will experience a very unpleasant dream. That unpleasant dream is what is called Naraka or hell. So that, and regarding the rituals of 13 days, all these karmas that people do after someone passes away, these are all good. But once when Bhagavan was asked about these, all the rituals that are done, whether in the 13 days after the death of a person or the annual rituals that are done every year, Bhagavan was, for those who passed away, but Bhagavan was asked whether these are good, whether it's good to do all these. Bhagavan said, yes, it is good for the doer. That is, in a normal worldly sense, for example, if we see a hungry person, we give food to that person. It seems to us that that person has got that food because we've given it. Actually, that person received that food. If it wasn't from us, they would have received it from someone else because it was their destiny to receive that food. So though it may be a good action on our part to give food, that person isn't enjoying that food because we've given it. They're enjoying it because it's the fruit of actions that they have done in the past. And because we have done a good action now, we did it with volition, but we wanted to help a poor person, that's a good karma. So that fruit will be good for, will be stored in our sanchita, and one day we may experience it. One day when we're hungry, someone may give us food. So whatever that is, we are each, whatever we experience is the fruit of our own karmas. So then what is the use of doing rituals for those who passed away? Just like we give food to, when our relatives are alive, when our parents, for example, when they're elderly, we take care of them. We provide them food, we provide them shelter, we provide them all the care they need. Our care for them doesn't cease when they leave the body. So we do these rituals to express our continued care for them. So just like the actions we did while they were alive seem to be doing good for them, though what they were experiencing was actually the fruit of their own karmas, past karmas. In the same way, in exactly the same way that the good we seem to do for them when we're alive seems to benefit them, the good we do for them after they pass away seems to benefit them. So those rituals are all good, but actually, though, if you do good actions, there is good fruit. But who experiences those good fruit? You are the ones who experiences those good fruit. If you have done a ritual for your deceased mother or father, Bhagavan was asked, does it actually, supposing someone has passed away, you're supposing someone's a father or mother has passed away, they will have taken birth somewhere. So how come the actions that we do, these rituals, the yearly shraddha, that is the rituals that are done every year for those who have passed away, how can these benefit them? Bhagavan said, Yes, yes, it will benefit them. Supposing your relative has been born, even whatever, they may have been born as a cow, in which case that day they may get a very nice lush green grass to eat. They may have been born as a human. In that day they won't go hungry, they'll be fed. So the action in exactly the same way, but the actions we do in this material world seem to help those other people in this material world. The actions we do in forms of these rituals, they help in a subtle way. But actually, though it seems, if I'm hungry and you give me food, I will say thank you. It seems to me you have benefited me. But actually, you wouldn't have been able to give me that food if it had not been my destiny to be given that food. And that destiny was the fruit of actions I have done in the past. But I'm not going to tell you, if you give me some food, I'm not going to tell you, okay, this is my good karma, it's not your, I'm not going to say thank you to you because I'm just experiencing the fruit of my karma. No, in the normal way, if someone does an act of kindness to us, we thank them, we are grateful to them. And we like to return that. If they are in need, we would like to help them. Even if they're not in need, if we see some other person in need, we like to do it. So doing good karmas bears good fruit. It seems to benefit the person who is the recipient of good karma, but they are experiencing the fruit of their past karmas. And the good action we've done, that action the fruit of that action will be stored in our sanchita and may at some point in the future be selected by God for us to experience. So I hope this answers that. All these things about karma and everything, they're all very subtle things. We just need a general idea about these things, but we need not analyze these things in too great detail. What we know is, if you do good actions, that bears good fruit. If you do bad actions, that bears bad fruit. When you will experience those good or bad fruit, that's entirely in the hands of God, because it's only when God, if you won't experience it in this lifetime, it may sometimes seem, but because I helped you when you were in need, now you're helping me when I'm in need. Therefore, because last year I helped you, this year you're helping me. Therefore, I'm experiencing in this lifetime the fruit of my actions. It is not actually so. The fruit of whatever actions we do in this lifetime cannot be experienced in this lifetime. They will be stored in sanchita. Whatever we experience in this lifetime is preordained. It's already selected by God as the prarabdha for us to experience in this lifetime. So it's good to have a general idea of these things, but we need not dwell upon all these things too much, because these are all anya, they're all things other than ourselves. But the whole purpose of the law of karma, as taught by Bhagavan and by Advaita in general, is to make us to understand whatever we are destined to experience, we will experience. Whatever we are not destined to experience, we will not experience. So we need not be concerned about such things. We need not try to experience anything or try to avoid experiencing anything. We should let our outer life, we should let all experiences go on as they are destined to go on. Our only concern should be turning our attention within and thereby surrendering ourselves. And when we experience the prarabdha, we should try to experience it without likes and dislikes. Because if we have liking for things, we want more of it. If we have disliking for things, we want to avoid it. So long as we want to have liking and disliking, those under the sway of our likes and dislikes, we will be doing more agamya. We'll be doing more action swayed by our will, swayed by our vasanas. So that is what we want to avoid. How do we avoid it? Only by this simple practice of self-investigation and self-surrender taught by Bhagavan. The next question was asked by Lindsay. What she asks is, amid troublesome events, should we have an underlying feeling that things are right while practicing surrender? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's what surrender is all about. How would I know if I were doing this right? I'm troubled by the thought, but I cannot be in states of surrender and suffering simultaneously. But that's what I seem to be. Okay, this is a very good question, because this is the very heart of Bhagavan's teachings. Bhagavan's teachings are all about surrender. Surrender is the goal and surrender is the path. That is our ultimate aim, is to surrender this ego entirely. And the means to, and so we need to practice this surrender in order to attain that ultimate surrender, of complete surrender of ego. What surrender is all about? Surrender is the Sanskrit term for self-surrender is Atma Samapanam. The Atma in Atma Samapanam obviously isn't our real nature. It isn't what we actually are. It is only ego. Their ego, Atma refers to ego. So the self we are to surrender is ego. So that is what our aim is, to surrender ego. Why do we not surrender ego? Because we are not willing to do so. So in order to surrender ego, we must though our aim is to surrender ego, the means to surrender ego is first to surrender our will. That is why surrender is all about surrendering our will to the will of God, or will of Bhagavan, we can say. Because Bhagavan is God, Guru, and everything. For us, he is Mata, Pita, Guru, Devam. He's mother, father, God, and Guru. He's everything for us. When we are following this path of surrender, we are trying to surrender our will to his will. So what is his will? Bhagavan is infinite love. And because he is infinite, he doesn't see us as other than himself. He is our own real nature. He is our own, what we actually are, that is Bhagavan. So he doesn't, whereas we love him as if he were someone other than ourselves, he loves us as not other than himself. He loves us as himself. Why? Because he sees us as himself. He doesn't see us as anything other than himself. So what does Bhagavan love? He loves just to be as he is, because the state of being, Sat, is the state of perfect Ananda, the happiness. So to be happy, we need to be just to be as we are. So what Bhagavan wants for us, if at all Bhagavan has any wanting, we can say what Bhagavan loves is for us to be happy. And for us to be happy, we need to just be without rising as ego. So what Bhagavan wants is that we should surrender this ego. When we surrender ego, we remain as we actually are. That is the state of perfect happiness. So surrendering our will means trying to give up the inclination to rise as ego. And the inclination to rise as ego expresses itself in the form of Vishaya Vasanas. Vishaya Vasanas means, Vishaya means any object or phenomenon, in other words, anything other than ourselves, and Vasana means an inclination. So our inclination to experience Vishayas, to attend to anything other than ourselves, that is a Vishaya Vasana. That attending to things other than ourselves is the food on which ego lives. Because as Bhagavan said in verse 25 of Uludunapadu, that is, ego is a formless phantom. Why is it a formless phantom? It has no form of its own. And it's a phantom because it has no substance of its own. Its seeming substance is Satchit, I am. That is the awareness of our own existence. That is the only substance in ego. But that substance doesn't belong to ego. It belongs to Satchit. It belongs to our real nature. So ego borrows its substance from our real nature, and it borrows its form from the form of a body. So ego itself is a formless phantom. It is neither Satchit, nor is it the body, but some spurious entity that rises in between, saying, I am this body, limiting that in taking the substance of I am and limiting it to the extent of a body. So this is the nature of ego. So ego, so Bhagavan then in that verse 25, he describes ego, how ego that what is the nature of ego? He says, Urupatriundam, grasping form, it comes into existence. Urupatri nikum, grasping form, it stands. Urupatri undu mika ongum, grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. Uruvittu urupatrum, leaving form, it grasps form. Tedinal otum pidicum, if sought, it takes flight. So such is the nature of this formless phantom called ego. When he says grasping form, it comes into existence, that as what he means there is, as soon as we come in, we rise as ego, we project and take a body as I. That is, when we start dreaming, as soon as we dream, we experience ourselves as a body in that dream world. So first we grasp the form of a dream body as I. That dream body obviously doesn't exist independent of our awareness of it. So we project and grasp that body as I, and then through the five senses of that body, we project a dream world. So the first form we grasp is a body. And we can, so long as we stand as ego, in other words, so long as ego endures, we continue grasping that body as I. And we project and experience so many other forms, both we experience both an internal world of mental phenomena and a seemingly external world of physical phenomena. All these are forms that the ego is grasping. That is, whatever we attend to, we are grasping that. So because the nature, so long as we are attending to anything other than ourselves, we are thereby nourishing and sustaining ego. So the means to surrender ego is to turn our attention back and try to grasp ourselves alone. This is why Bhagavan says in the 13th paragraph of Nana, he in the first sentence of the 13th paragraph, he defines what is giving oneself to God. In other words, what is surrender? He says, well, the main clause is Atmanishta Paranai Irupade Tanai Isanaku Alipadam. That means Atmanishta Paran means one who is firmly established as oneself. So being firmly established as oneself is giving oneself to God. That is the main clause. But how to be firmly established as ourself, that he describes in an adverbial clause, which is the beginning of the sentence. Atma chintane tavira, vera chintane kalambavadaku, satram idam kadamo. That means being firmly established in oneself without giving the slightest room to the rising of any other thought except Atma Chintana. Atma Chintana literally means thought of oneself, but it implies self-attentiveness. So what this implies is that we need to be so keenly self-attentive that we thereby give no room to the rising of any other thought. We are thereby firmly established as ourself, as we actually are, as our real nature, and that is giving ourselves to God. So ultimately, the practice of that is the ultimate practice of self-surrender is self-investigation, because it's only by clinging to self-attentiveness that we can thereby give ourselves to God. Why? Because, as Bhagavan says in that verse 25 that I was talking about, verse 25 of Uludanaptu, he says, the ego grasping form, it comes into existence, grasping form, it stands, grasping and feeding on form, it flourishes, leaving form, it grasps form. That is, when we leave one form, we grasp another form. That's also referring to when we leave the body at the time of death or at the ending of a dream, we sooner or later we grasp another body, where that is either we subside into sleep and then rise again grasping another form, or we immediately grasp another form. So such is the nature of ego. But Bhagavan says in that verse 25, the vital clue, he says, Tedinal otum pidicum. Tedinal otum pidicum literally means if it seeks, it takes flight. That verb tedinal, it literally means it seeks. There's neither a subject nor an object there, but what it implies in this context if ego seeks itself, even seek is used in a metaphorical sense. It actually means if ego attends to itself, if ego investigates itself, otum pidicum. Otum pidicum, otum means it runs away or it takes flight, and pidicum means it sees it. So it's an idiom, like in English we say take flight. If you run away, you take flight. That if you're fleeing a dangerous situation, you take flight. It's a very similar idiom that Bhagavan used in Tamil. Otum pidicum. It grasps running is what it literally means. So it takes flight. So what does that mean? What is implied by when ego investigates itself, it takes flight? What does that mean? That is, the nature of ego is to rise, stand, and flourish by attending to things other than itself, but to subside and dissolve back into its source by attending to itself. That is, so long as we are attending to anything other than ourselves, we are thereby nourishing and sustaining ego. When we attend to ourselves, because the nature of ego is to grasp form, but ego itself is a formless phantom. So if it tries to grasp itself, it's got nothing to hold on to. So it subsides and dissolves back into its source. What is its source? Its source is the fundamental awareness I am. That is our self as we actually are. That is the source from which we've risen as ego. So what we experience in sleep, what do we experience in sleep? We experience only I am. We're not aware of anything other than ourselves. We are aware only of our own existence. So from that state of pure satchit, of existence awareness that we experience that we exist as in sleep, we rise as ego in waking and dream. So that is the source. So to the extent to which we attend to I am, we subside and merge back into I am. So this is how surrender is brought about. But what prevents us turning within and attending to ourselves? Because we have what are called what Bhagavan calls Vishaya vasanas. That is, we have strong inclination to experience things other than ourselves. Why? Because ego comes into existence, stands and flourishes by grasping form. So since ego doesn't want to die, it's got a very strong inclination to grasp form. That inclination to grasp form are what are called Vishaya vasanas. So the problem we're up against are our Vishaya vasanas. Because we've got strong inclination to attend to other things, we are not willing to let go. Because we are not willing to let go, we are not surrendering ourselves. So in order to surrender ourselves, we need to surrender our will. That is, we need to give up our inclination to attend to anything other than ourselves. This is what is called the surrender of our will. So in part of that surrender is to accept. That is, Bhagavan often used to say, whether you call it prarabdha or God's will, it amounts to the same thing, because though the prarabdha, whatever we are to experience in this life is our prarabdha. That is the fruit of actions that we've done in our past. But we've done so many, in every life. If in one lifetime, we experience one lifetime of the fruit of our past actions, we accumulate 100 or 1,000 lifetimes worth of more fruit, because we always want to experience far more than we can experience, and we're always trying to experience all the unpleasant things. So our desires are far greater than anything we can experience. So the general tendency is to accumulate more and more and more fruit in every life. So the store of the unexperienced fruit of our past actions is that's why it's called sanchita. Sanchita means a vast heap or pile, like a big mountain. We've got a mountain of fruit, and Bhagavan, from that vast mountain of fruit, Bhagavan selects just a small selection for us to experience in this lifetime. So whatever he has selected is, why does he select certain fruit and not other fruit? He selects those fruit that are most conducive to our spiritual development. So whatever fruit he's selected for us to experience in this lifetime is what is good for us. So it is his will. So what is in the context of the law of karma is called prarabdha. In the context of the path of bhakti or surrender is called Bhagavan's will, the sweet will of Bhagavan. That is whatever we experience in this lifetime. We all undergo so many experiences. Some experiences are pleasant, some experiences are unpleasant. And when we experience unpleasant experiences, supposing there's some person who's giving us trouble, whether at work or at home or something, we tend to think, oh, because of this person, I'm experiencing these troubles. No. That person is just a means by which Bhagavan is giving you the trouble. Why Bhagavan is giving you the trouble? Because he knows that is good for you. So whatever troubles we face in life, we should accept them all. This is all the sweet will of Bhagavan. If we have a strong conviction that whatever we experience is his will, and whatever he wills, that is, because he is all-knowing, nothing can happen without his knowledge, because he's allotted all these things. Because he is all powerful, nothing can happen without his consent. So whatever is happening is happening with his knowledge and consent, because he's the one who has allotted it. But most important of all, he is all loving. He is omnibenevolent, as they say, but it's nice that it's more meaningful to say he's all loving. His love is infinite. So whatever he wants for us is what is best for us. We've got an idea. It's good for me to avoid COVID. But if we get COVID, that is because it's good for us to have COVID. So whatever happens in our life, whether it's seemingly pleasant or seemingly unpleasant, it's all for our own good. So if we have that firm conviction, but whatever happens is happening, is according to his will, we will then accept it as his will. That is why Bhagavan expresses this very beautifully in verse 2 of Arunachal Patikam. Ninishtam enishtam. Your will is my will. Imbedaku. That is happiness for me. So whatever happens in our life, it is his will. It's happening with his consent. This is the fruit of our past action, but he has selected, knowing that this is the best thing, what is best for us. So we should accept it as his sweet will. And if we accept it as his sweet will, we will be able to bear even the most unpleasant experiences. That is, just because we surrender doesn't mean that our life is going to the unpleasant experiences are going to stop. But the unpleasant experiences will no longer be experienced as unpleasant because we accept them as his will. In other words, we are giving up our likes and dislikes. Whatever happens, it is happening by his will. Therefore, it is what is good for me. So as you say in the first sentence, Lindsay, of your question, amidst troublesome events, should we have the underlying things that things are right while practicing surrender? Absolutely. Whether we are practicing surrender only if we have that strong conviction that whatever is happening is right. There's a saying in Tamil, Ellam nanmeke, all is only for good. So we should have that conviction. Whatever we experience, whether we experience pleasant things or unpleasant things, all is only for good. And whatever troubles have come to us, it's not caused by other people. Bhagavan in the form of those other people is giving us trouble. Why is he giving us that trouble? Because he knows that is what is best for us. Like a parent, as I said earlier, Bhagavan is, for us, Bhagavan is Mata, Pita, Guru, Devam. He is mother, father, Guru, and God. He is everything for us. So whatever he does is what is good for us. So just like a parent may sometimes be strict with a child, but prevent a child may want to have another lollipop or something, but the parent says no, because the parent knows that if a child has another lollipop, he's already had too many already. If he has another one, he's going to get sick. So the parent is strict with the child because they know that is what is good. Bhagavan is our parent, our God, our everything. So whatever troubles he gives us is what is good for us. So we should always have that firm conviction, Ellam nanmeke, all is only for good, because all is his will. So that's your first question. And then you say, how would I know if I am doing this right? The measure of how well we are surrendering, how unperturbed we are. So long as we are perturbed by the unpleasant things and excited by the pleasant things, our surrender is imperfect. That is when we attain a state of equanimity. Equanimity, or that is another meaning of the term, that is one of the meanings of the term samadhi, is samadhi. Sama means what is balanced, what is equal, sameness. And D means intellect, so the state in which our mind is in a state of equanimity. In the midst of all, you don't have to, that is the only samadhi Bhagavan talks about is sahaja samadhi. Sahaja samadhi doesn't mean sitting with your eyes closed and going into the nirvikalpa samadhi, I'm mindful of the world. Sahaja samadhi means even in the midst of all the vivahara, the troublesome events of the world, we have to maintain that state of equanimity. Then we are in samadhi, even in the midst of all our activities. That is the far deeper meaning of samadhi that Bhagavan has given than the yogic meaning of samadhi, which is just, as Bhagavan said, it's just a state of manolaya. What they call kevala nirvikalpa samadhi is nothing but manolaya. That is not, we are not seeking manolaya. We, in the midst of whatever is to be experienced, we want to maintain that equanimity. How do we maintain that equanimity? By clinging fast to I am. So this Bhagavan has taught us as if they're two separate paths. There's path of self-investigation, paths of surrender. But actually they are one and the same path. They're so closely interwoven. We cannot surrender without self-investigation, and we cannot investigate ourselves without surrendering ourselves, because so long as we're not ready to let go of ego, we will not hold on to I am. So this is one and the same path. And so the clues that Bhagavan have given us for the path of surrender are very useful for us in the path of vichara, and vice versa, because actually they are one and the same path. This is that is what is, from one perspective we call it self-investigation, from another perspective we call it self-surrender, but it's the same practice, clinging firmly to I am and thereby letting go of everything else. So how do we maintain that equanimity? How do we remain unperturbed by anything else? Only by clinging to I am, because the one thing, the mind is always in a state of chalana, it's always moving. The mind is a monkey mind, it'll always be moving. But there's one thing that always remains without moving, that is I am. So cling to I am, then that is in the midst of a big raging storm. If you've got a firm post to cling to, you don't have to worry about being swept away. Hold on to your post and you'll survive the storm. So whatever state of the mind may be in, let us not be worried about the mind. Let us cling only to I am. If we cling to I am, then the mind will automatically become calm. So this is the extent to which we are happy and unperturbed in the midst of whatever pleasant or unpleasant things may happen in life. That is the sign that we are surrendering correctly. So we can, as Bhagavan said, but a nice analogy Bhagavan gave also in that 13th paragraph, that is, Bhagavan says we need not think about anything else. We leave the entire burden to God. And Bhagavan gives the analogy there of a passenger traveling on a train. When you're traveling on a train, you may have some luggage you're taking with you. If you don't trust the train, you can carry the luggage on your head. But even if you're carrying the luggage on your head, the train is still carrying the luggage. So by carrying the luggage on your head, you're suffering unnecessarily. Whereas if you put the luggage aside, put it on the seat beside you, or if there's someone sitting there, you put it on the luggage rack, or you put it on the floor, put it somewhere, anywhere but on your own head, you can then travel. And Bhagavan says, why to suffer, kashtapada, Ain kashtapada vendam. Why to suffer unnecessarily by carrying it on your head instead of just being happy by putting it aside? Sukhamaya Rama. Instead of just being happy by putting it aside and traveling happily, why to suffer carrying it on your head? So even the burden of thinking we can leave that burden to Bhagavan, because whatever is to happen, he will make it happen as it's meant to happen. So if our body, speech, or mind are meant to do any action, let him use them. We have to surrender body, speech, and mind, everything to him. We have to cling only to I am. Let him take care of everything else. So that is the surrender. So to the extent that we are unperturbed by anything, to that extent, we are truly surrendering ourselves. So to the extent that we remain equanimous in the midst of whatever experiences life may throw at us, that is the sign of surrender. And then you say, I'm troubled by the thought, but I cannot be in states of surrender and suffer simultaneously. Yes, correct. If we are suffering, we are not surrendered. Why do we suffer? That is, so many things happen in life. Some things are pleasant, some things are unpleasant. But why do the unpleasant things make us suffer and the pleasant things make us give us pleasure? Because of our likes and dislikes. If we had no likes and dislikes, we would not be moved by even if you win the lot. If you've got no liking to win the lottery, even if you win the lottery and you get $1 million or a crore of rupees or something, you will not be elated if you've got no liking for that. If you're in a state of equanimity without likes and dislikes, you will not be elated by even the most what would excite other people will not perturb you at all. Likewise, even the greatest suffering, why do we suffer? We suffer because we dislike things. Why do we say famine is bad, war is bad, pandemic is bad? Why do we say these things are bad? Because we don't like them. Why do we suffer as a result of these things? Because of our dislike. If we were in a state of equanimity, see Bhagavan, for example. Bhagavan had the most painful cancer. That is, he had sarcoma growing on the nerve. So it's an extremely painful cancer. What most of us would be unable to bear. Bhagavan bore it with perfect equanimity. Why? Because he had no likes and dislikes. Why did he have no likes and dislikes? Because there was no ego there. So long as there's ego, there will inevitably be likes and dislikes to a certain extent. But we need to minimize the extent to which we have likes and dislikes. That is, our Vishaya Vasanas, the first sprouting of a Vishaya Vasana is in the form of a liking and disliking. When it sprouts a bit further, it develops into desire, fear, aversion, all these other things. So it's the likes. That's why Bhagavan says in the 19th paragraph of Nana, likes and dislikes are both to be disliked. If we can be free of likes and dislikes, that is the state of surrender. That is the state of perfect happiness. So the ego is kept alive by its likes and dislikes. So to the extent to which we can give up our likes and dislikes, we'll be able to surrender ego. And so practicing surrender in our day-to-day life is an essential aid to going deep in this practice of self-investigation. Because when we are trying to attend to ourselves, we attend to ourselves to the extent to which we let go of everything else. And we let go of other things only to the extent that we are willing to let go of them. That willingness to let go of them is what is called surrender. So we cannot practice we cannot go deep in the practice of self-investigation without self-surrender. And we cannot go deep in the practice of self-surrender without self-investigation. The two are inseparable. So the extent to which we suffer is a measure of the extent to which we are yet to surrender ourselves. We shouldn't think, oh, because I'm suffering, I'm hopeless, I'm not a good devotee. None of us are good devotees. We're all very imperfect devotees, but we shouldn't lament the fact. We should just try to surrender more and more. Whatever suffering may occur. Why am I suffering? Because Bhagavan wants me to undergo this experience. I suffer because I don't want to undergo this experience. If I'm willing to accept what Bhagavan wants me to undergo, then it won't cause me suffering. So whatever terrible circumstances we may undergo in life, if we are willing to accept them as Bhagavan's will, we won't suffer. So happiness in the sense of not in the sense of pleasure, but in the sense of equanimity. The happiness in the sense of equanimity is the measure of how much we are surrendered. The suffering is the measure of how much we are not yet surrendered. So none of us are surrendered completely. It doesn't. Our surrender is only. We are all trying to surrender. What we need to do is just try more and more and more. The whole purpose of life is surrender. If we achieve nothing else in life, if we achieve at least a partial degree of surrender, we have achieved the benefit of this life. The more we surrender, the more we are benefiting. So, because in Bhagavan's path, there's nothing for us to gain. Bhagavan often said, Jnana is not a new knowledge to be attained. Jnana is your very nature. The problem is we have knowledge about things other than ourselves. If we give up knowledge about other things, what remains is only self-knowledge. So in this path, what is called moksha or nirvana or liberation or whatever, that is not, or jnana, that is nothing but surrender, giving up everything. Have I talked beyond my time, or do I still have time? There's one more question.
I think you can please take up one more question,
okay.
Michael, and
Okay.
then we will
Okay.
go with the bhajans. Thank you.
Okay, but the last question I was asked was, what is my daily routine and how different is it from when I was in Tiruvannamalai? Our daily routine really doesn't matter, because that is, according to our, I don't say all the actions we do are according to prarabdha, but all that we are to experience is according to prarabdha. That is, prarabdha is the karma pala. Karma pala determines what we are to experience. So whatever we are to experience in life is determined by prarabdha. So our daily routine is more or less according to prarabdha. So when I was in Tiruvannamalai, part of my daily routine was walking around the hill every day. That was a great blessing. I had that great fortune of, for many years, walking around the hill every day. And when I wasn't walking around the hill, when I was doing other things, assisting Sadhwarming, translating Bhagavan's works, and proofreading books, and doing so many things I was doing. Now my routine is not so different. I'm still engaged in this answering questions that people ask about Bhagavan's teaching. But the most important thing, the outward things are not important. What is important is what is going on inside. Are we allowing our attention to go out towards other things, or are we turning it within? Well, I have to confess, I still have strong Vishaya vasanas. My mind goes out towards other things. But at least I try to keep my mind dwelling as much as possible on Bhagavan's teachings, because Bhagavan's teachings are constantly reminding me to turn within. So if you ask what is my daily routine is as much as possible trying to keep my mind on Bhagavan, dwelling on Bhagavan's teachings, and putting them into practice by turning my attention within. What happens in the outward life is unimportant. It's all determined by prarabdha. Let it take its own course. I hope that adequately answers that question.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, we still have about 9 or 10 more questions coming in from YouTube. Maybe we could take up those and a few others as they come in during the next month's satsang. Else, if you may be available sometime this month, we could organize a shorter session again.
Yes. If you can take a copy of all the questions that have come in through the live chat, and then next month I can answer those questions.
I have copied, and I will email them to you immediately after the satsang. Michael.
Okay,
thank you, sir.
That's very good. That's very good.
Michael, once again, thank you so much. There is
all thanks to Bhagavan, because what have I been saying? I've just been pointing out what Bhagavan says. So I've got nothing of my own. It's only what Bhagavan taught us.
there is an
So-
outpour of gratitude and thank you for you on the YouTube comments from people across the world. So
well,
I
because
just wanted
this
to
is
share
the
that with you.
surrender is the very heart of Bhagavan's teachings, and I think today it's almost all been about surrender. So it's this is the very heart of Bhagavan's teachings. So
Right.
this is what we're all here for.
Thank you. Thank
Right,
you. Thank you
right.
so much, Michael.
Right.
I will now request Jayanti Didi to commence with the bhajan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jayanti Didi, please you
Yeah.
miss.
Okay. Taruna kiranavali நிகதருமக்ஷரமண மகிழ்மாலை திரநாடிய திரு தெளியார் தெருமகள் தெளிய பரவுதல் பொருளாக கருணாகர முனிரமணாரியன் உவகையினால் சொல்லியது கதியாக அருணாச்சலமென அகமே அறிவோம் ஆழ்வார் சிவனுலகாழ்வாரே அருணாச்சலவதற்கு ஏற்ற அக்ஷரமணமாலை சாற்ற கருணாகர கணபதியே கரம் அருளி காப்பாயே அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவரகத்தை விரருபாய் அருணாச்சல அழகு சுந்தரம் போல் அகமும் நீயும் முற்று அபிமமாயிருப்போம் அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அகம் புகுந்தீத்துன்னக குகை சிறையாய் அமர்வித்ததென் கொல்லருணாச்சல ஆரேக்காயனை ஆண்டனை அகற்றிலம் பழித்திடும் அருணாச்சல இப்படி தப்புனையே நினைப்பேதாயினி யார் விடுவார் அருணாச்சல ஈன்றிடுமல்னையின் பெரிதருள் புரிவோய் உனதருள் அருணாச்சல உனையே மாற்றி ஓடாதுள்ளத்தின் மேல் உறுதியாயிருப்பாய் அருணாச்சல ஊர் சொற்றுளம் விடாதுனை கண்ணடங்கிடவுன் அழகை காட்டருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல என்னை அழித்தி போதெனை கலவா விடிலிதுவோ ஆண்மை அருணாச்சல ஏன் இந்த உறக்கம் என்னை பிறரிழக்க இது உனகழகோ அருணாச்சல ஐம்புல கழ்வர் அகத்தினில் போகும்போதகத்தில் நீலையோ அருணாச்சல ஏன் இந்த உறக்கம் என்னை பிறரிழக்க ஓ அருணாச்சல ஒருவன முன்னை ஒழித்தவர் வருவாருன் சூதே இது அருணாச்சல ஓம்கார பொருள் பொயர்வில்லோ உனையார் அறிவார் அருணாச்சல அவ்வை போலென கொண் அருளை தந்தெனை ஆளுவதுன் கடன் அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாஷ வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சூதாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாஷ வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சூதாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே ஏழுலகம் ஜீவன் முக்தி இன்பம் பொங்கவே ஏழுலகம் ஜீவன் முக்தி இன்பம் பொங்கவே இதயமாகும் இறைவனாகி எல்லாம் ஓங்கவே இதயமாகும் இறைவனாகி எல்லாம் ஓங்கவே பாழ்மனம் மகந்தை வாழ்வு பாழ்பட்டொழிகவே பாழ்மனம் மகந்தை வாழ்வு பாழ்பட்டொழிகவே பரம சச்சிதானந்தாத்ம பால் பொழிகவே பரம சச்சிதானந்தாத்ம பால் பொழிகவே வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாஷ வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சூதாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே தட்டிலாத நித்திய ஜீவ தத்துவம் ஓங்கவே தட்டிலாத நித்திய ஜீவ தத்துவம் ஓங்கவே தன்மயத்தில் சின்மயம் தழைத்து ஓங்கவே தன்மயத்தில் சின்மயம் தழைத்து ஓங்கவே எட்டு திக்கும் வம்ச சோகம் எதிரொலிக்கவே எட்டு திக்கும் வம்ச சோகம் எதிரொலிக்கவே எல்லாம் பிரம்மம் என்னும் உண்மை வகிக்கவே எல்லாம் பிரம்மம் என்னும் உண்மை வகிக்கவே வாழ்க ஸ்வயம் பிரகாஷ வாழ்க வாழ்கவே சூழ்க சுத்தாத்ம சக்தி சூழ்க சூழ்கவே
Jayanti ji, thank you so much. Narayanan ji, for the Aarti, please. Narayanan ji, you are on mute. Thank you.
देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् अमृतमयि स्वाहा ओम प्राणाय स्वाहा ओम अपानाय स्वाहा ओम ज्ञानाय स्वाहा ओम उदानाय स्वाहा ओम समानाय स्वाहा ओम ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः अरुणाचल श्री रमणाय नमः कार्तिकाय नमः रावण देवाय नमः सुब्रह्मण्याय नमः स्वामीनाथने नमः दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः नटराजने नमः भैरवे नमः नंदीमहेश्वराय नमः शिवपार्वतीये नमः ओम नमः शिवाय 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 पुरन्दरघोषीरं नैवेद्यं समर्पयामि मध्ये मध्ये पानीयं समर्पयामि अमृतं समर्पयामि नीराजनं समर्पयामि नीराजनानन्तरम् आत्मनीयं समर्पयामि हरि ओम हरि ओम हरि ओम मूलीवत्समायुक्तं नागवल्ली तदयोर्धं कर्पूर्णसूर्णसंयुक्तं तदयोर्धं कर्पूरं श्रीरमणमहर्षिः समर्पयामि अम्मा ईश्वरं विष्णुतं ब्रह्मत्वं प्रजापति ओम तथा ज्योतिर्भुवः न कर्मणा न प्रजया जने विद्यालये अमृतत्व मानसो परेण नाहं जीवितम् उपायं विप्राजते दत्तदेयो विसन्ति वेदांत विज्ञान से नित्यदाता संन्यास योगा तदे सुप्त सत्वाः ते ब्रह्मलोके तु परान्तकाले परामृतात् परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे परं विभावं परमेश्वरभूतं यत् पुण्डरीकं पुरमद्य सर्वं सदं तत्रावित्तकर्म कवनं विसोगस् तस्मिन् यदन्तं तदुपादित्यं यो वेदान्तस्वर प्रभुतो वेदान्तसंख्यप्रतिष्ठितः तस्य प्रकृतिलीनस्य परसमयेश्वरः मन्त्रपुष्पं तीरमुणमर्षिति समर्पयामि ॐ सद्गुरुर्ब्रह्मार्पणमस्तु हरि ओम् हरि ओम् हरि ओम् आदिदानि सत्पापानि जन्मानि कृतानि च आदिदानि प्रसन्ति ओम नमो गणेशाय नमस्ते विष्णुवे ओम नमो गुरुमेघाय नमः गजानन अभिजानमत्मार्गं गजाननम् अहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तम् उपास्महे अरुणाचलं ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल शिरमणाय ओम नमो भगवते श्री अरुणाचल शिरमणाय ओम
Namo Ramana. This brings us to the closure of the Satsang day. We shall meet in 2 weeks again, and that will be for a bhajan sandhya with Aditya Pathak. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.